is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And without any further delay, we have ourselves a big-time show. As you thought last week's show was big, we got another big show. We have another guest from the NBA. If you haven't been following on Twitter, you are basically missing out. Also, the VNL Women's Championship wrapped up. Who came out on top? And what the heck happened to Team USA? Also, the men's VNL is this week, as the top 8 will be clashing with one another. And because I couldn't recap it last week, I've got some AVP to recap. I've got the Hermosa Open to recap, the Waupaca Open to recap. So you know what the drill is. You better hand me a volleyball. You better set up that net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set. This is Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set here on iSports Radio, your direction for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Without any further delay, let's get on into that volleyball action. But first and foremost, we have another guest. My guest is the head coach for the New Jersey Freedom, and he's also the head coach for the NJCU men's volleyball team. Also, his Team Freedom, or New Jersey Freedom, is off to an amazing start in the season. They finished the regular season 10-0. They're off to the playoffs with lots of momentum. Ladies and gentlemen, oh, by the way, I need to mention this one more thing. He is also an expert on guessing how many pieces of candy there are in a jar. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, introducing my guest, the one, the only, Mr. Carlo Edra. How you doing, Carlo?
I'm doing great. Really excited to be here. Greetings to everybody listening from New Jersey.
Hey, it is awesome to have you aboard. Great to have you. I've heard lots of great things about you, and we are honored to have you here. So, without any further delay, let's get on into that volleyball goodness. But first, we have to basically, it's nothing too big, but basically, just a little disclaimer, these are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and Carlo Edra, not the thoughts and opinions of NJCU, or the New Jersey Freedom, or any portion of the NVA, or iSports Radio. These are just two volleyball fans just speaking their mind and having some fun, just like last week. So now with that out of the way, Carlo, the floor is yours. Tell everyone who you are and basically your origin of volleyball.
Oh, man, I think I can probably talk about this all day, but I'm going to try to give you the shortened version here. So my name is Carlo Edra. I live in New Jersey. My volleyball career basically started from birth. My dad was a national team player in the Philippines. My mom was the star of her high school team. That's basically how my parents met. I got numerous aunts and uncles that played. My brother is an avid player himself. He actually holds the dig record at NJCU. I have a bunch of cousins all over the place. Played high school, played clubs, some played college. So the volleyball is very big in our family. My journey began in high school. Never really grew up wanting to play volleyball. I decided one day that I was going to give it a try because my high school was having tryouts. And, my dad basically was one of those things where he would wake me up right before school. We'd go for a session in the backyard. He came home from work, then we'd do another session. And that's basically how my volleyball journey began. got recruited by NJCU. So I'm the head coach there now, so it's a long journey because I was actually a player there. I played there from 2004 to 2006, became the assistant coach in 2007, became the head coach in 2008 to 2011 when I was 23 years old. So if you could imagine what it was like to be the head of a college program at that age, it was terrifying, yet figured out that that's kind of what I wanted to do for a living. Ended up got married to my wife, Nicole, who just so happened to also play volleyball with me in high school, and she played in college as well. So if you're getting a theme here, it's volleyball is basically everything around me. So we ended up getting married. Volleyball was a part-time position back then, so it really wasn't bringing in that much money. I had to resign my position. Eventually, got a big boy job. Started to do some consulting work. A couple of names that I'm kind of going to name drop here: Besmir Asllani, who was an All-American at Kane. Peter Namiotko, who actually currently plays for the Chicago Untouchables, who played Division I volleyball at NJIT, and also John Andrews, who plays for Southern Exposure, who coincidentally became one of my players at NJCU. So, did some work with those guys on the side, and then I guess we can get to the point where Freedom joined the picture. General manager, owner Justin Beaumont, who, another coincidence, used to be one of my players back when he played in college, and he had this idea of starting a professional team to, I don't want to say professional, an open team to represent New Jersey at USAV Nationals. And 2016, he asked me to be an evaluator to help pick the team back when Freedom was called Team Jiva. 2017, I had any association with the team outside of I helped choose them. They made fourth place in open, and then, I guess the coach for the team didn't work out then, so Justin kind of called me and asked me if I wanted to take over. To be honest with you, I had no idea if I was qualified or capable to coach those dudes. But I ended up taking the position, started following the guys to whatever tournaments they were playing in. Played in nationals in 2018. That was my first one with the team. We had already become Freedom at that point. We placed second, national runner-up in the open division. Played again in 2019. Didn't have as good a showing as we'd like to, but 2020 got in the NBA. 2021, we went 5-4 in the season and then lost in the quarters to Stingers. And that's pretty much what brings us to here and now. We're having a good season this year, so hopefully when championship weekend comes along, we can continue how the regular season has been.
What a journey right there. It's pretty much a full circle when it comes to like all these former players and assistants and all that sort of thing. So absolutely amazing stuff, Coach Edra. So you talked about the NVA, and what was the process when it came to being the Freedom's head coach, and what's it like being an NVA coach?
There was no real process. It was Justin basically just after you say, hey man, I need a guy that's going to be able to handle all the personalities and just figure out which dudes belong on the court. And I was kind of, like I said earlier, I was a little reluctant to take the position because, my experience was Division III coaching and didn't really have much outside of that. And at the time I was working a full-time job, and it was one of those things that once I got out of work, I was going straight to YouTube. I was trying to watch a higher level of volleyball and trying to figure out why these guys are doing this. So eventually, it was one of those things where I faked it till I made it, and spent a lot of time with the guys, and eventually, was able to figure out how to coach that level of volleyball, and that's pretty much that.
Now, obviously, with you being the head coach of NJCU, was it a little tough balancing out New Jersey Freedom and NJCU coaching in the same season, or was it pretty much straightforward?
Well, it's more difficult for my family because we'll start our regular season for NJCU in January, and there pretty much won't be any overlap outside of, a freedom practice here and there. But we normally do that on Sundays when we don't have stuff going on for NJCU, so it works out. The only conflict I really have is Event 1 normally falls in the first week of April, and that also happens to be our conference tournament for NJCU. So I believe it's been 2 seasons now where I have missed the first event based on that, because, NJCU is my day job, and we're trying to build something new over there. We're trying to build a new foundation, a legacy, and kind of change what that program is known for. And, once NJCU season is over, then we go straight into freedom, and it's like that up until August. And the reason why I mentioned it's going to be rough for my family because, from January up until August, I am gone a lot between coaching college and coaching in the NBA. So always got to mention my wife. She becomes a single mother for a good amount of that time between January and August. So got to shout her out.
Absolutely. Hats off to her for having to do with all of that. So how about the off season? Are you involved in like the NVA's off season or like any of the preseason events, or is it just mainly NJCU off season for you?
Yeah, like I was telling you before, GM owner Justin Beaumont, and we also are fortunate enough to have a team manager, Aaron Glore. Those two basically take care of everything in the off season. And when it comes time for practices and events, that's when I basically do my part. So all the off season stuff, those two handle everything.
Got it. So you mentioned some of them earlier when you first talked about your volleyball origin. Who have been some of your other memorable volleyball players you've coached at NJCU?
Oh my goodness. Obviously the first one, he'd probably kill me if I didn't mention him. It would have to be my younger brother. That was quite an experience because, your brothers, but he's kind of got to look at me as a coach. It was a weird dynamic at first, but we eventually figured it out. Other than that, always again, we're mentioning Justin. Justin was a guy who, I was his coach, so he kind of looked at me as his superior. And throughout the years, Justin and I have kind of been really good friends, actually best friends, actually. And to look at him based on how our relationship began, to kind of see that we're equals, it's kind of it's a good feeling to see how that relationship turned out. So those two really stick out in my head.
All right. That's nice. Absolutely amazing right there. So last year you were named the NJAC Coach of the Year. How humbling is that for you, and what does that mean for your growth as a coach at NJCU?
I think it was, I hate winning awards like that because, it does say Coach of the Year, but it takes a village to win awards like that or get that kind of recognition. I have amazing assistant coaches, Mikey Kucha, Patrick Padilla, Jacob Farah, and Amy Dillon. These, we're D3, and you hear that I have a assistant coaching staff of 4 people. Also got to shout out the university who kind of gives us anything that we need. Throughout my time there, I've never really heard no. So, it's amazing. It's kind of like, it makes it worth everything. If I can't think of a better way to say that, but, as a university, it just makes us more marketable to get bigger recruits in there. And especially for me, I'm an alumni there, so it kind of is, double special there to kind of bring in that recognition to NJCU and also, as a player and as a coach.
Now, you say you coach at the NCAA Division III level. Is the level of volleyball still the same as opposed to like NCAA Division II, NCAA Division I, and NAIA? And if so, what is the preparations for like being a good team in that level?
So obviously, I may may ruffle some feathers here.
It's all good.
There are a lot of Division III teams that can keep up with some D1 teams. Biggest difference is, these guys play a high level of volleyball, very quick tempo. Division I guys, these guys are bigger, and they also, I think the most impressive thing about them is they're huge dudes that move like they're smaller guys. And I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, there's obviously a little bit more skill with the Division I players, are a bit more refined, but the D3 level is just as tough. So for my guys at the D3 level, obviously one of the first things I brought to them was we are going to speed up the way we play. So I gave them all that freedom footage, and I was like, this is the system we're going to run, and we're going to play a similar style of volleyball. NJCU was not a program when I got there that ran that kind of offense or defense or anything like that. So it was a bit of a change for them, but that was the only way we're going to get that program better. It's just a perfect combination there where I am the Freedom head coach, so we're gonna bring that culture, we're gonna bring that system over to Division III volleyball, and luckily, the guys on the roster right now, they have kind of been able to pull it off, and we've had some success because of it.
I see. Sometimes change can be good, honestly. So,
yep.
Staying on the topic of NCAA Division III, is it true that there's no instant replay? And if so, how frustrating is it to not have instant replay, especially in a tight set?
Oh, man. When Division III teams do play Division I teams, you will get some challenges. So that's about the only time you can pull it off. But, yeah, definitely it's a bit frustrating because you can see a call, obviously, and there's nothing you can do about it. There are so many times where I really wish I had a challenge. But, I can't knock on the refs. I'm always the kind of guy that even if we get a bad call, we just kind of got to forget about it, because the way you kind of treat the officials is how your players are going to do that. So if I'm arguing every call, my guys are going to start arguing every call. We're going to get calls. Sometimes we're not going to get calls, and you just got to move past it. So at that point, can't really look at it like, oh, they need challenges, but you just got to live with it. You can't go back in time. The call's made. Let's just make sure we win the next point.
Very good point right there. And I totally agree. Sometimes you just got to move past it. I mean, high schools are probably going to say, oh, we need challenge system. It's like, no, you don't. It's high school volleyball and whatnot. Leave that to NCAA. Anyway, yep. So for the NBA, it does have a challenge system. And how refreshing is that for Nick England to, input that to, get the calls right, especially since it's a professional league?
Yeah, at the pace and speed that game is played in the NBA, it's one of those things where the officials are going to try to do the best they can, but sometimes you'll be on the sideline, you'll look at the guys on the sideline with you, and you'll be like, hey, do you think that was in? And they'll look at you like, I think so. It's just, you got to do your best and then make the best judgment call, but also at the same time, if you don't feel like you got the call, the officials got the call right, you have that option. So luckily for us, we have been. They are saying, the commentary crew is saying that we are one of the more successful teams when it comes to challenging. Yeah, sometimes I use it to get it right. Sometimes I use it for an extended timeout. So whenever we use those challenges and we don't win them, in the back of my head, I'm like, I didn't think we were going to win this, but now I know you have an erratic jump server coming up next, and I can't tell you how many times that it's actually worked out for us, where we either win the challenge or we force a service error on their next attempt.
Very good strategy, and that's basically my point of view when you use a challenge. It's either it's going to be a successful challenge or it's going to be a timeout or icing the server. So before we jump into the NBA, I need to ask this one question. If I just so happen to be visiting New Jersey, where is a good place for anyone, such as a foodie like me, to go eat at?
Oh, man. Oh, I don't know if you know this, if you've perused my Instagram, but I'm a huge foodie myself. Man, I live in Bloomfield, New Jersey, which is right next to downtown Montclair. I'm pretty close to it. There's just so many food spots to eat, but I'm going to go with a really affordable answer here. There's a place in Clifton, and if you're into hot dogs, they deep fry the hot dogs. If you look at every list out of New Jersey or nationally, it is probably the best hot dog in the country. It's called Ruts Hut, and they have this relish there that goes with the fried dog. If you hate relish, you will still love this thing. I don't know what it's made of. It has to have some sort of involvement with God or a higher power because it is so delicious. So if you are in New Jersey, North Jersey especially, Ruts Hut, you have to eat that hot dog.
I see. So whenever I head up to New Jersey, I will keep that in the back of my mind. So we actually have a question from our live chat room. He says, Adam Karnick, our host of our Chicago show, Chi-Town Weekly, which just went off the air, he actually is intrigued about that deep-fried hot dog. He says, you have my attention. But his question is, and here's what he says. Can teams have a spy, in quotation, with a higher perspective to offer an opinion on a challenge? I'll let you try to answer that one, and that's Adam Karnick's question.
I mean, there are people who do watch the matches, so every now and then, this is also part of the, I guess, the challenge of the challenge system, is you'll always see somebody in the crowd go, I would challenge it, or they'll give you the challenge signal with their hand, and sometimes you got to make that decision. If you feel like, oh man, I think that was pretty close, and you see someone in the crowd do it, you're like, all right, that's all I need. I think if you saw the same thing that I did, I may challenge it this time. So I don't want to say there's a spy, but maybe I want to say to tip the scales. If I see more than one person in the crowd giving me a look, I may use that to sway me towards making that challenge.
Got it. All right, great job on answering that question. And thank you, Adam, for asking that question in the Spreaker chat room. All right, now let's jump on over to the NBA. So this year, the New Jersey Freedom have finished with the best regular season, going a perfect 10-0, and they're heading to the playoffs with a lot of momentum. What must your team do in order to win the NBA championship?
Oh, man, it is... I wish I knew the answer to that question. We're going to try our best to figure that out. So if we do win the whole thing, I'll come back to you to tell you what exactly it is we did. But it's just got to be more of the same. I say the same thing for all our pregame interviews. We're playing super confident right now. A big thing for me is we're playing calm. There's never any moment where we think we're out of a match. The guys have been staying together, and I think that's a huge part of it. It's just, I can't really explain it. We're just playing really well right now, and it's just the togetherness.
So in some of your matches that I've seen and that Nick England kind of discussed last week, your team has served and passed the ball really well. Is serving and passing something you really exemplify just because that is one of the biggest keys to winning most volleyball matches and winning the serve and pass game?
Yeah, that's hilarious. I remember listening to that interview you had with Nick, and you guys mentioned that at when you guys talked about our match against the Stunners that happened in the last event. Prior to starting that match, literally said it. I was like, guys, what's going to win us this match is winning the serve and pass battle. Stunners is one of those teams that are just serving lights out. And this year, we're kind of one of those teams, too. So, it's men's volleyball. Serve tough, block, try to win as many transition points as you can, try to stay in system as much as you can. And, I want to say, serving-wise, we do have some ruts on serving, and that's something that we kind of emphasize at timeouts or in between sets where we're like, hey, that was close, or if we drop the set, we're like, if we start to land our serves, then this changes everything, because serving this season has been a huge strength for us. And it's not one of those situations where if we start piling on errors, I'm not telling the guys, hey, let's go to get one in. No, because if we get one in at this level, the other team's going to be in system, and it's going to be way easier for them to score points. So I've told the guys, I was like, hey, we're not that team. If we're serving tough, we've just got to start being aggressive and figure out a way to get those serves in. but definitely never take something off the serve. We have to be aggressive on the service line.
And I totally agree. Like, especially in men's volleyball, where basically a soft serve is basically just a free play. It's basically like a free ball. So I really do have to tip my hat that your team really serves tough. And against the Stunners, that was quite the roller coaster battle. The first match against the Stunners, you actually won that one in 4 sets, and then this go around, you had to win it in 5. Which the fifth set, you basically just ran away with it. Like, what was the key, and how were you able to just outlast a very talented Stunners team?
I think it's our service pressure. That fifth set, we did, we kept them on their toes when, during their serve receive. And, or even earlier on in the season against the Tyrants, those were based off of how we were going at those guys. Serving, some people like to look at serving as getting the point started, but serving is an offensive weapon if you utilize it the right way. I don't want to say we didn't block, we didn't transition or anything like that, but yeah, everything for us has been basically based off the serve. I think that was a big reason why we outlasted them. Had a good conversation with Matt Prosser after the match. He's the head coach of the Stunners, and he just felt like we were relentless. Like, we'd make a couple plays, and when we go back at you in transition, we're not looking to give you a roll shot or a tip. You got to be ready. Like, you can't take your block down. You can't peel on us because one of our guys is taking a hack at it. So that's kind of been our mantra. We're serving tough, and if we get a ball up, be prepared because we're going to be aggressive when we come back at you with the ball.
That is awesome, and it was probably the match of the weekend. It basically decided the conference and the division and whatnot. So the fact that you all were able to pull out that win was quite outstanding. So obviously I know this, but tell the listeners at home who have been the standouts for your team and why. What have they done to become standouts?
So, the obvious guys you're going to say are the guys who made the All-Star game. You got Matt Seifert in the middle, Joe Norman on the right side. Tim Farragher, Ian Kapp went in as outside. Ryan Alou as the libero, and Matt Elias as the setter. We had really good representation in the All-Star game, but it's a disservice to the other guys to not mention them because we sometimes we don't have certain guys at certain events. Like in event 1, we didn't have Elias, we didn't have Seif, we didn't have Doug, but we still pulled off 2-0. And then event 4, we literally came to the event with 7 dudes. We didn't have most of our all-stars at that event, and we still pulled it off. We had Jake Milnazic, we had Danielle Venegas, we had Johnny Cunningham, who was playing on one leg in that second day because he hurt himself in the match before. It's just I can't single any guy or a couple of guys because we're truly a next man up type of team, and we've rotated our guys and we've played every single one of our guys, and obviously we're 10-0, so there's not a guy we don't trust in there. So it's just the whole roster.
It does indeed take a village. Just like with the coaching staff, it takes a village, and it takes everybody, especially in practice. So, I know you don't like singling out players, but I really want to know what's it like coaching Joe Norman, a.k.a. Joe Normus, and please inform the people how talented of a player Joe Norman is.
Joe is... Man, how do I describe coaching him? Joe is, I guess... what's funny is we were having this conversation in the last event where I guess he's so confident on the court, people judge him a little bit that he may be unapproachable. But if you get to talk to this guy, he is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Literally, like Joe's got a plethora of experience. This guy played Division I. He played Division III volleyball, won a national championship there. He's played at every major league. He's played in Korea. He's played in oh my God, I don't want to get the wrong country down in there, but he's played some serious professional volleyball overseas. But he'll still go to you for advice, like, hey, how do you think that game went? Oh, what could I have done better? are there any adjustments I need to make in the next match or in between sets? Like, he's just one of those guys that literally takes whatever info you can give him to improve his game. Joe's a really easy guy to coach, and obviously, like, you know, you see what he does on the court, so he's a pleasure to have on your side.
Absolutely. I hate to be on the other side of Joe Norman. So, anyway, this is a little off topic from the New Jersey Freedom, but please explain to the people what the Jersey Grit is and how it's a real thing. And for those that don't know what the Jersey Grit is, please just explain what Jersey Grit is.
Man, this can be explained in so many different ways, and I feel like me trying to explain this, I'm just going to go on a million different directions, but I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. Jersey Grit. Jersey, like these guys, some guys are from Pennsylvania. It's more of like an East Coast thing, I want to say. We're very straightforward. Some people may think of it as rude or, why are these guys so mean to each other? But it's just the culture in the East Coast. So part of it is, as bluntly as it is, if you're going to punch me, dude, I'm going to hit you back. And the grit, it's just no matter how impossible the situation may look, we're still going to figure out a way to either take that match from you or make you earn that match if you're going to beat us. I want to say that's pretty much it. Grit. You're going to have to basically, you know, we're going down swinging, or we're going to figure out a way to take over this.
Well explained, short, precise, and to the point. And I don't think you could have said it any better. Now back to the NVA. Ira Thor is a big part of the NVA with Nick England and all the other people behind the scenes. Did you work with Ira Thor back at NJCU, back when he was part of the athletic department? And if so, what was that like?
Oh, my goodness. Ira is... How do I even begin this? Ira... I first met the guy in 2004 when I got recruited to play there. He was the sports information director, so that's how our relationship began. He's always been a good friend. We weren't that far off in age. Obviously, once I started my coaching career there, him and I got much closer because we went from a guy covering what we did as student athletes to now we are coworkers now. Ira, that guy was at my wedding. Even during that time where I left coaching and, before I came back in 2020, there was a good, 9 years in between? Him and I still kept in contact because he was just a guy I always respected, work ethic unmatched. Like, you're talking about a guy who comes in first thing in the morning and does not go home till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because he was by himself covering however many sports NJCU had. I really can't say enough good things about him. Now he's moved on from the athletic department, and now he's in charge of marketing for the entire university. Guy works for the New York Jets, New York Giants, the Red Bulls, and the MLS. He works all these college matches. I have no idea where he gets this energy from, but I know this may this may make this seem a little sappy, but Ira really is he's one of my role models in my life. Those times where I feel like I need to grind it out, I'm not getting any sleep, and I know I got work to do, I always think about Ira. I'm like, Ira did it. I can do it too.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the New York Red Bulls. Maybe he gets some Red Bull from those New York Red Bulls.
He has to. I have no idea where that energy comes from. That guy's a machine.
Especially when he says, reach out and stuff someone. I basically have to quote that in the chat of the NVA streams. It's just so iconic. Don't you think that reach out and stuff someone is just an iconic catchphrase? Oh, yeah. The first time he said it, everyone listening to that stream was like, what did he just say? And it became his tagline. And I know he said he's probably going to trademark that quote, and he wants to put it on a T-shirt and start selling it. And I told him, everyone who is a fan of the NBA
who plays in the NBA, we are all going to have those shirts.
I can't wait to get those shirts, one of those shirts. I will definitely cop that. All right, so as well as Ira Thor, we have Nick England, who was my guest last week. He is the marketing and broadcasting manager of the NBA. What is your relationship like with Nick England, and what have been some of your memorable moments with Nick? It could be on or off the volleyball court.
Oh, my goodness. Nick is just, obviously Nick is part of the, I want to say the NBA administration. So most of his work is done with Justin Beaumont, the owner, and also our team manager, Aaron. Me personally, Nick and I are just boys that pass each other all the time. I see him, I dap him up. We just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit, talk about our games. And, Nick is good people, man. I like him a lot.
Absolutely. A great guy overall, and I can't wait to see him in person. And yes, I am going to do my best to try to go to that event. I've made plans and whatnot. I've kind of been saying it and hinting at it, but I definitely want to go to the NBA playoffs this season. And I also want to meet you in person as well.
Oh, absolutely, man. I hope to see you over there.
Yeah. All right, a few more questions, and then I'll let you go for the night. All right, so what advice would you give for a new-time NBA fan, especially for someone who's a fan of, like, Chicago or Los Angeles or New Jersey or Texas and all those sort of cities and states?
So you just, like, what do I think? I'm sorry, could you rephrase that question? I kind of blanked out there.
It's all good. So what advice would you give for a new NBA fan who is a fan of a certain city like Los Angeles, New Jersey, Chicago, Dallas, all that sort of thing? What advice would you give to a new NBA fan?
I think it's obviously number one. Anytime you know your guys are playing, go watch those matches and support them. Another thing is, do not be afraid to contact these guys. Every team has an Instagram page. Every player is tagged on them. There was one case where LA Blaze, I can't remember where the kid was from, but I think his dad and himself, I think it was from Alabama or something like that. They came all the way from there to watch them play. These guys had a sign out. They watched both their matches. They were at the All-Star game. It's just connect. In the time we live in, you have direct access to everybody. And these guys in the NBA, they're all about growing this game. So if you're, especially the younger fans, never be afraid to reach out to these people. And tune in. That's the other thing. Tuning in is the best way you can support.
Absolutely. Great advice right there. And at first when I heard about the NBA, I'm like, or not the NBA, NVA, I was like, really, there's an NVA? And then I was like, oh wow, there's actually an NVA. And my first NVA match was basically was during the pandemic. And then I eventually started to increase my knowledge of the NVA, and I even got to see a few of my friends. But back to you. So when it comes to the New Jersey Freedom, obviously you all were known as Team Freedom last week. Does it get a little confusing for people trying to say New Jersey Freedom and then mistake it with Team Freedom?
It's funny because you could hear the commentating crew. They were even stumbling with it at the beginning of the season. We want to go with the rebrand of New Jersey Freedom, but we've been Team Freedom since, I want to say 2017. So it's kind of been what we've been known for. And the rebrand, going straight to New Jersey Freedom is going to take a little bit getting used to. But, it's something eventually we just want to keep it the state and the name. But also, I got to think of our logo. Our logo is TF, and we have the Freedom Tower right in the middle there. It's hard to leave that because it's such a when I saw, and we're going to go off topic here because I remember when we first got our logo, when we got in the NBA, we've always had, I guess like the TF was our trademark. And then when they sent us this mock-up of what they wanted it to look like, and I saw the Freedom Tower in the middle there, I was like, wow, this is without a doubt, going to be the best logo ever in the league. And, I actually had this conversation with our team manager, Erin, and I told her, I was like, yeah, it's going to be rough to transition. She's like, yeah, it's just so hard to get rid of the team part just because of the logo itself. So, yeah, I don't know what we're going to do from there. Whether we just stay with New Jersey Freedom, we keep it New Jersey Team Freedom, but that sounds like the job of somebody else. I'm just there to try to win games with the guys.
Yeah, that's a good point right there, and very good answer right there. I mean, I kind of say Team Freedom when it comes to recapping the NBA, but more times than not, I want to get the correct city right. But either way, I think it's still potato, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to bash anybody for saying Team Freedom. I mean, I don't think it's not like messing up the Inland Empire Matadors and the Ontario Matadors, so... Even though Ontario is in the Inland Empire, so...
Mm-hmm.
So I digress on that part, but we're pretty much reaching the end of this interview. I do need to know this, and this I just recently saw on Instagram. So I saw you were able to correctly guess how many pieces of candy there were in the jar, and for those that are wondering... Carlo guessed there were 69 pieces of candy in the jar, and at first I saw 69, I was like, nice. And then afterward, he wound up winning the contest. I probably either guessed it correctly or he just guessed closest to the number of pieces of candy in the jar. So I need to know this, Carlo. What is your secret to guessing pieces of candy in a jar correctly?
So my personal secret is to never grow up and be a childish sophomoric guy my entire life. God, when my wife listens to this, she's gonna be like, I cannot believe that made that on there. But it's funny because that was at my friend's baby shower, one of my best friends. He didn't even look at the name. He saw the guess and went, this is definitely Carlo's guess. And when they gave him the number, I think it was 71 pieces of candy in there. No one was even close to that. And they're like, I can't believe I have to say this out loud. So when he said my name, he was like, yep, Carlo got it right. I yelled in the middle of the baby shower. I was like, say what my guess was. And he had to say it out loud, and everyone that knew me there were like, of course. Yeah, I can't really describe it any other way. That's just kind of the way I approach everything. I don't take anything too seriously, and I'm always going to be there to joke around.
Absolutely. Great stuff right there. And all I just said was nice. So kudos to you on that, Carlo. And is there anything else you want to discuss or anything you want to plug in before we head off to a commercial break?
Absolutely, of course. So there are two things, two people. Actually, let's go one person. And I always have to shout this out because people think of, oh, Team Freedom, they have these guys that play there. They associate me as the head coach. And Justin, who's basically the face of New Jersey volleyball. But the person who doesn't get the most recognition is the person I've mentioned a bunch of times already, and that's our team manager, Erin Glore. She is our team mom. She goes above and beyond for the guys. She said it when they interviewed her that if she wasn't in the picture, we would still have the same amount of success this season, and I'm going to call her a liar. Or absolutely, not liar, because she probably genuinely meant that, but she is absolutely wrong. And you could ask any of the guys what is one of the biggest reasons we've had success this season, and they will all say Erin is a huge part of that. She makes sure everyone is taken care of. When it comes to our flights, we don't do a thing. She does all that stuff for us. She basically takes us to and from the event wherever we need to go, does all our uniform stuff. She takes care of all that stuff, makes sure we're all well fed. We have snacks. If somebody's hurt, she figures out a way to get them unhurt. I cannot begin to explain how important Erin is to the team itself. And the other thing I want to plug in here is Montclair Shipping Plus. Go to them for all your shipping needs because they take care of Team Freedom. They're responsible for shipping us to and from New Jersey. They're just huge, major sponsor of ours. Made our life so much easier this season, and that was just one thing we no longer had to worry about. So, yeah, they've been great for us. Montclair Shipping Plus, Aaron Glore, Team Mom. Can't say any more good things about them, and they are essential to everything that's happened to us this season.
Great shout out to them. Definitely gotta give their props to them, and that's amazing. I did not know that there was a team mom on the New Jersey Freedom. Absolutely amazing, and it's the people like her that are behind the scenes that help a team be successful, and it's quite amazing. It's quite astounding. So, Carlo, thank you very much for being a guest on Set Point. Before we head off to a commercial for me to give you a proper send-off, where can these volleyball fans find you at?
All right, so my personal Instagram page is CeeLo_Smash. Huge Marvel guy. If you look through my Instagram, you'll start to see it. My basement, literally, I have a man cave. It's just a bunch of toys. You'll think it's my son's room, but it's actually mine. I'm actually a huge Iron Man fan, but CeeLo Smash just had a good ring to it. And, you can also follow the Team Freedom page, Team Freedom VBC on Instagram. Also, NJCU M Volleyball. That's my college team. So, yeah, those are the three ways to kind of see what's been going on with me there. You can also find me on Facebook, Carlo Edra, but I don't really go on there. That's for my family where I post pictures and they can comment on it like, oh, that's what your kids look like now. So when it comes to actually seeing what I do, Facebook's not the place to go, but strictly Instagram.
Yeah, no one who really uses Facebook anymore. but great job, Carlo Edra. We appreciate you being here on Set Point. One last thing, best of luck going forward, not just with the playoffs this season, but with everything in your future endeavors. But definitely do best of luck in the postseason this year. Obviously, it's tough for an undefeated team to stay undefeated and keep that momentum going, but you are definitely going to be one of the teams I'm going to keep a sharp lookout for, and I definitely cannot wait for the NBA playoffs. I think it's going to be electric.
Yeah, I think, at the end of that last match, I kind of told the guys, this 10-0 record means, for lack of a better term, the S word, unless we finish the job. No one's going to care that we were undefeated if we end up losing in the playoffs. So we've got to finish this because this is the difference between being, the 70s Miami Dolphins team, or we could be the Patriots team that went undefeated and then lost in the Super Bowl, which I'm a Jets fan. Nice for me to take that shot at the Patriots any chance I get.
Absolutely amazing. Funny thing is, the team that they lost to was the Giants. So
yes, sir.
All right. Well, amazing interview with you. I definitely appreciate it. Well, let's roll on over to a commercial break. When I come back, I'll be recapping some VNL women's volleyball, as well as recapping some AVP, and I'll also be previewing the VNL men's volleyball top 8. So you were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Hermosa, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on 90 Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. That was our guest, Carlo Edra, the head coach of the New Jersey Freedom, as well as the head coach of NJCU men's volleyball. We appreciate him being a guest here on Set Point. It was definitely a fun interview to have, a great interview to have, according to Ira Thor. He is definitely allowed back on the show anytime in the near future, and I can't wait to have him back. So, once again, thank you to Carlo Edra, and best of luck to him going forward. Now let's jump on into some other volleyball action. So, before we get on into it, we have to go over the sponsor. IE Sports Radio is proud to call the Southern California Warriors Semi-Pro Football Team the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to tryout for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on social media, on Twitter, at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram, at Southern California _Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California and then Warriors. And then IE Sports Radio, the platform we are partnered with, is on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. They also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you will see a Patreon link at the top, starting out at $5 a month. This will get you a shout-out from all 28 of our shows, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on IE Sports Radio's segment of their flagship show, The Defining Moment, with Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, such as Carlo Edra, and other authorized media personnel, such as Nick England, to dedicating themselves to all major sports cities around the country, while building tailor-made shows dedicated to said major sports cities around the country, as well as all the sports shows. All the while, we've been continued to be by the fans and for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Shout out to our 4 Patreon supporters: Bay Area Raised Apparel, Marcus Los Great, Key to the Gate, and a donor that is anonymous. Thank you to everyone that made the 8th year anniversary special very special back in September. Also, we would like to give a shout out to IE Sports Radio's Fan of the Month, Justin Ekstrom, a Minnesota Vikings fan hailing from the Great Lakes of Minnesota, right where my boy, the sports governor, Vince Wright, is. And without any further delay, now let's get on into that volleyball action, starting with some AVP action. So I didn't talk about this last week, and I'm sorry if I didn't talk about the AVP last week. I had Nick England on as a guest. We had the NBA playoffs to not the NBA playoffs to recap. We had the last event of the NBA to recap. We also had some VNL to recap and preview. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the AVP. It would have been a 2-hour show, which would have been unacceptable. Anyway, so to the Waupaca Open, on the men's side, Roberto Rodriguez and Dave Palm defeated Timothy Brewster and Kyle Friend on the men's side of things, while Skylar Del Sol and Andrew Dentler, along with Caleb Quico and Ian Satterfield, both finished tied for third as both teams lost in the semifinals. On the women's side of things, Carly Kant and Caitlin Leary both finished first on the women's side as they defeated Katie Dickens and Jennifer Ketty. Tying for third place was Charlie Ekstrom and Skylar German, as well as Callie York and Kylie DeBerg. I'm familiar with Kylie DeBerg just because she played at Missouri and at LSU. And I'm also familiar with Charlie Ekstrom. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 95% certain she went to Stanford. I'm almost certain she went to Stanford. She did go to Stanford. So Gina G, who was in the chat room, she was happy that I got that interview with Carlo Edra. Charlie Ekstrom did well in the most recent AVP event. Granted, it was in the Pro Series as opposed to, or the AVP Tour Series as opposed to the Pro Series, but it's all good. I mean, getting tied for third is no easy concept in any sort of tournament. Especially, I want to say like it's her first ever AVP tournament. If not, it's definitely her highest finish in an AVP tournament. Either way, it's impressive that Charlie Ekstrom was able to have herself a strong finish in this event. Jumping over to the Hermosa Beach series, this was kind of where all eyes were on. I think this was the event that all AVP fans had their eyes on. I know I kind of just breezed through the Waupaca Open, but I'm kind of also just going to recap the Hermosa Beach Open as well. On the women's side of things, Sarah Sponsel and Therese Cannon defeated Kelly Chang, or Kelly Clace, and Betsy Flint in straight sets in the final, 21-12 and 21-15. Quite the impressive win for Therese Cannon and Sarah Sponsel. One, because they've been pairs for, I want to say 1 or 2 years, and 2, this is actually their first ever AVP event that they've won. And believe it or not, this was actually a full circle moment for Sarah Sponsel. She used to play pickup beach volleyball in Hermosa Beach, and now she is standing on top of the AVP tournament ladder, which is quite nice. And then being paired up with Therese Cannon is also a big plus. Something to note is that Therese Cannon has bounced around with many partners. I want to say she bounced around with Sarah Hughes, who, believe it or not, the two, Sarah Sponsel and Therese Cannon, actually beat Sarah Hughes and her partner in the final. And yes, actually, no, it wasn't Sarah Hughes. That was the other final, or the other semifinal. Therese Cannon and Sarah Sponsel defeated Lauren Fendrick and Zana Muno in the other semifinal, while Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint defeated Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky. And something I did not know is that Kelly Kalinsky and I think Bill Kalinsky is his name, those two are actually husband and wife. So I didn't know that they were husband and wife, but that is really cool that we have beach volleyball husband and wife in the AVP, which is nice. Obviously, they can't pair up just because different gender, but it's really cool to have that sort of thing. Either way, I digress on that, but anyway, and I actually misread it. So Therese Cannon and Sarah Sponsel actually defeated Sarah Hughes and Kelly Kalinsky in the first semifinal, while the second semifinal consisted of Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint defeating Julia Scholes and Gina Urango. Now, both semifinals actually went 3, and honestly, it could have gone either way. For those of you that are wondering, this is the same Sarah Hughes that was making all those outstanding plays in that viral video of Team USA's pair just like keeping the ball alive. And Sarah Hughes was just scampering all over the court to keep that ball alive. And I have known this for quite a while. Like, Sarah Hughes is a fighter. She is a scrapper. It is quite outstanding. So this is nothing too out of the ordinary for me, who has seen Sarah Hughes play beach volleyball. So Sarah Hughes unfortunately did lose to her former USC teammate, Therese Cannon, but it was quite an eventful semifinal, which eventually turned out to being, I wouldn't say a one-sided final, but honestly, Therese Cannon and Sarah Sponsel really earned this event. They really earned the championship. Just because Kelly Cheng and Betsy Flint already won an AVP tournament, so the fact that we got to see someone new win the tournament is actually a breath of fresh air. I'm not trying to say that it wouldn't have been cool if we had seen Cheng and Flint win. It's just that I like to see consistency and variety, especially since Sarah Sponsel has played on the Hermosa Beach courts, and she's been having that dream of winning an AVP tournament. And the fact that she got to have that moment is absolutely amazing. So that is that for the women's side of things. Jumping on over to the men's side of things, we had Theo Brunner and James Schulk defeating Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander, or Team Taylor as I call them, in the Hermosa Beach final, as they had to win it in 3 sets. They won the first set 22-20, dropped the second set 24-26, and then won the third set 15-9. So that second set was very tricky, just because when it comes to the AVP, you go to free scoring. You basically have to earn a point via 2 side-outs in a row. And it's quite tricky to earn that second point in a row. It basically goes back to old-school side-out volleyball, where you have to score on a serve, on a side-out serve. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it is in the rule book if you are ever confused. So it's quite astounding and amazing that Brunner and Schulk were able to win. Honestly, this was probably the most wide-open tournament out there, as Team Taylor, Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander outlasted Phil Dalhouser and Casey Patterson, and then Brunner and Schulk outlasted Paul Lotman and Miles Partain. So honestly, it's quite astounding that they were able to win that tournament. And it was quite the eventful tournament. Matter of fact, the number 1 overall seed, Trevor Crabb and Tri-Bourne, actually lost in their opening match to the number 16 seed. Yes, I am not lying. The number 16 seed knocked off the number 1 overall seed of this tournament. That just went to show how wide open this tournament was. It was just so wide open. Nothing was guaranteed. Just like 2020. Even Brunner and Schulk had to win their way through the consolation bracket or the contenders bracket. Either way, it was quite astounding, quite amazing that the men's bracket lived up to its reputation of being so wide open and just having no clear-cut winner. I personally predicted Phil Dalhausser and his partner to win it all, but I fell a little bit short. This is why I don't bet, just because I can't predict anything correctly for the love of me. But it is great to see the slim beast Phil Dalhausser back in Hermosa Beach. I didn't get to see him in person because I had to work and because of the NVA, but it is great to see him back on his dominant self. And I think the last AVP event didn't do Dalhausser much justice, just because he had to partner up with a new partner. I don't think he was fully comfortable in his own with his partner. I think being partnered up with someone like Casey Patterson is so much better. And I think Dalhausser being in his hometown really kind of gave him that home field advantage. Obviously, he didn't win, but again, this tournament was so wide open that no one could have predicted a clear-cut winner. So that's kind of my little spiel right there, and honestly, it was a great tournament in terms of Hermosa Beach. So where is the AVP heading next when it comes to the next series or next little tournament? Well, this week, the AVP will be hitting the road to New Jersey for the Atlantic City Open on July 23rd and 24th. Unfortunately, we don't really have too many details, which makes me sad face. I don't even get to see who's entering or not. So, thanks, AVP. I'm just kidding. So, obviously, it's Monday. There's not going to really be a whole lot of information just because the tournament starts on July 23rd, which is a Saturday. So, anyone could enter this or drop out at any given moment. So, obviously, I can't really say, oh, AVP, why did you release this? No, it's my fault for having set point on a Monday. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. I can't have a perfect preview of the Atlantic City Open. But once the information comes out, then I'll probably do my best to update you all and hopefully tweet it out via Twitter. So that is that for the AVP recap of the Hermosa Beach Open and the Waupaca Open. Let's jump on into some VNL women's volleyball as the top 8 just wrapped up this past week. So before we move on, something I did not know, and I had to actually look this up, and I did not know, was that the U.S. was the top seed of the whole VNL knockout round. However, what I didn't know was that Turkey was the host site of the VNL top 8 knockout round. So Turkey, no matter what, was going to be into the tournament, whether they finished in the top 8 or they finished out of the top 8. It goes as follows: if the host site makes the top 8, they are automatically the top seed. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They could be the 8th seed, they'd be the top seed, and then the top seed would just move down to number 2, and then everyone else would just move down one spot. So there's that. If the host team is outside of the top 8, then the host team will take over the number 8 spot, and then everyone else goes down. So let's say Thailand finishes number 8, and then Turkey finishes number 9. Turkey takes the number 8 spot. Thailand is out on the outside looking in, and then it's Turkey versus the number 1 seed. In this case, Turkey made the top 8. They finished 7th in the regular season standings, or the round robin standings. They basically jumped up to the number 1 seed, so they had the honor of facing Thailand in the first round of the knockout round. So there was that right there, and then the USA, which was the number 1 team, had to slip all the way down to number 2. And since Turkey was facing Thailand, USA had to face the next lowest team on the ladder, which was Serbia. Now, the U.S. defeated Serbia in straight sets, which obviously was no problem. And then I'll get into that a little bit later, but the rest of the matchups included Brazil versus Japan, and then Italy versus China, and Turkey versus Thailand. Jumping on over to the quarterfinal recap. So we had Brazil versus Japan. This was basically the matchup that people had their eyes on. Brazil obviously finishing 3rd in the standings. Not really the strongest finish for Brazil, but still a good finish whatsoever. They obviously had the strong arm of Julia Bergman, and Julia Bergman did really well. For those of you that don't know, she is a standout for Georgia Tech. She was the ACC Player of the Year, and she just did a lot of great things for Georgia Tech. I saw her play in person when Georgia Tech took on UCLA. Brazil took the first 2 sets in very close fashion, 29-27 and 28-26. And it looked as if Brazil was basically on its dominant self. However, Japan, being the scrappy team that they are, came back to win that 3rd set 25-20. And you got to remember, Japan had themselves a great start. They were 8-0 until the last week, where they basically just fell apart and they dropped their last 4 matches, which was not good times for Japan. Now, everyone thought that Japan was basically back on track, but Brazil, being the strong and talented perennial team that they are, took the 4th set in dominating fashion, 25-14, advancing to the semifinals, where they faced the winner of Serbia versus USA. Now, for those of you that listened to last week's show, I said boldly that the top 6 teams that I thought were basically going to have a good chance of winning it were basically USA, Brazil, Italy, China, Japan, and Turkey. I did not mention Serbia or Thailand. So, as I just mentioned earlier, USA swept Serbia the first match. That did not mean anything for Serbia. In the first set, Serbia actually outlasted the U.S. as they won the first set 29-27. And then the second set, it looked as if USA was going to win the second set and tied up at 1 set apiece. But Serbia played great defense in that second set, and they were able to win that second set with great defense and great side-out serving, as they won at 25-23. And just like that, USA was down 0-2 in sets. I was just astounded. I'm like, wait a minute. I said all those nice things about USA, and I didn't mention Serbia in my teams that had a good shot at winning it. And now this is what's happening. It's like, oh God, don't tell me I jinxed them. But in the 3rd and 4th set, the U.S. really came alive as they won the 3rd set 25-20, and they won the 4th set by an identical score. So the 5th set, it looked as if USA was back on track, but they started very slow in that 5th set. Serbia just really got out to a fast start. They eventually led 13-8, and it looked like it was just GG. However, the U.S. was able to rattle off 4 straight points to get within 1, but a hitting error kind of cost them, as it was match point for Serbia. The U.S. staved off 1 match point, and they had the chance to tie it up at 14-14, but a hitting error doomed the U.S., and that was pretty much that, as the U.S. lost the 5th set 15-13, and that was that. The U.S., which was the 3-time defending VNL champion, was eliminated in the quarterfinals. Technically, they finished 5th just because of better record, but dude, I was very surprised. Now, many are going to say that Karch Karai shouldn't have rotated his lineup. Many are going to say Catherine Plummer did not have her best game. No offense, Stanford fans. But I just think the U.S. underestimated Serbia quite a bit. I really think that the U.S. underestimated Serbia, and I think they looked ahead, which is something you never want to do. I get it. It's the knockout round is any given match, but you beat Serbia in straight sets. It makes me really wonder how the U.S. really lost this one. I'm not trying to take anything away from Serbia, and I will admit, I'm the first one to admit, I am eating lots of crow for saying that Serbia was not going to be the teams that have a good shot at winning the whole VNL. I'm going to say that right now. But what I will say is I'm very surprised the U.S. did not win this one. I mean, I guess they did not have a whole lot of adversity that they had to battle through outside of that Turkey match going 5 and outside of the Japan match where they lost that 1-3 all the way back in week 1. But I just think that the U.S. did everything incorrectly to try to get the win, and eventually it cost them. It's not on one player or one person. It's on the whole thing. Whether they looked ahead or not, I really think that the U.S. really blew an opportunity to at least get to the semifinals. If they had made it to the semifinals, it wouldn't have been too big of a deal, but this just goes to show that no one is safe in the top 8. Like, look at what happened. I hate to use this as an example, but look at what happened to the Green Bay Packers and the Tennessee Titans in the divisional rounds. They wound up losing to the road teams. The Titans lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Packers lost to the Niners. Basically, that was what happened with USA. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And I hate to really describe USA as this just because they were consistent and they won the VNL 3 times the past seasons. But the U.S. kind of went Peyton Manning. They had a great regular season or great round robin, and then they looked like a whole different bad team when it comes to the top 8. It really is disappointing, but I'm sorry, but the U.S. kind of deserved to lose. Whether they looked ahead, whether Karchkarai threw out the wrong players, and then he eventually threw in the right players in sets 3 and 4, or any of that sort, the U.S. did not deserve to win, and Serbia, I apologize for absolutely disregarding you or ignoring you or not putting you a part of the top teams that I think had a good chance at winning the VNL, but you deserve to win. And I don't care what people say about, the rules are terrible. It shouldn't be the home team getting the top seed. No, you actually have to go out and win the matches. Whether the U.S. was playing Thailand, Turkey, Serbia, or anyone in the quarterfinals, they need to go out there and actually win. I don't care who your opponent is. You actually have to go out and actually show some grit and effort. All right, now let's move on to the other quarterfinal. Jumping to Thursday's quarterfinal, we had Italy versus China. So Italy took the first 2 sets 25-22 and 25-19. China stayed alive by winning the third set 26-24. And then Italy was able to outlast China in that fourth set 25-22 to advance to the semifinals. And then the host team Turkey, despite losing the first set 25-23, they won the next 3 sets 25-15, 25-18, and 25-21 to advance to the semifinals. Honestly, I'm not surprised that Turkey advanced to the semifinals. They have a lot of talent on that team. I want to say they have a majority of their players from the Olympic team that made some noise and made it all the way to the quarterfinals or the top 8 before losing to South Korea in the quarterfinals. Anyway, jumping over to the semifinals. So in the semifinals, Serbia, riding that big wave of momentum following defeating the U.S., won the first set against Brazil 25-14, and this was quite impressive. And I really kind of question if Brazil was going to be on the next train out, but Brazil really responded well. They won the second set 25-18, narrowly escaped the third set 26-24, and won the fourth set 25-19. Now, the third set, to me, I think was the tipping point. I really think Brazil winning that third set really gave them the momentum. If Brazil doesn't take that second set, I'm not saying this literally, but I want to say that if Brazil did not take that third set, I don't know if Brazil wins that match, just because Serbia would be feeling good up 2-1, and they'd be feeling good going into that fourth set, and they'd have momentum, and Brazil would have their backs against the wall. So for Serbia to nearly knock off another powerhouse is quite impressive. And Serbia was my surprise team of the VNL on the women's side. My surprise team for the worst on the women's side was USA. I already talked about them. I don't need to talk about them again. Let's move on. To the other semifinal, we had Italy and Turkey, and Turkey being the host team, it was a very raucous crowd. I think there was like more than 10,000 people there, like probably way more than 10,000 people. Unfortunately, Italy had other plans for their fans as they swept Turkey in the other semifinal, 25-18, 28-26, 28-26, and 25-22. Honestly, I'm kind of not surprised, but Italy is so good. Like, they are really good, if you ask me. And no disrespect to Turkey, but I kind of feel like once they got to that semifinal, I thought the pressure was on for them. I didn't get to see the match, and I want to admit that, but I do admire the effort that Turkey brought. To the third place match on Sunday, we had Serbia sweeping Turkey 27-25, 25-17, and 26-24. This was another reason why Serbia was my surprise team of the VNL on the women's side. The surprise team on the good side of things. Just because they not only defeated the U.S., which was the number one team in the nation, they actually won their first ever medal. This third place medal was the first ever medal for Serbia in the VNL, which is quite impressive. So, just to recap, this Serbia team finished 6th in the standings as they finished 8-4, tied with China and Japan, and they knocked off USA in 5 sets in the quarterfinals. They pushed Brazil to 4 sets, and they swept the host team, Turkey. So, for Serbia to do all that and win its first ever medal in the VNL, it really is impressive. So, hats off to Serbia. On to the final, we have Italy versus Brazil, and these were very close sets, but to the credit of Italy, they were able to win all 3 sets. They won in straight sets. They won the first set 25-23, and they won the next 2 25-22 and 25-22. I'll give credit to Brazil. They had such a great run in this tournament, and I would have liked to see U.S. versus Brazil, but for Brazil to make it all the way to the final is quite astounding. And once again, the strong arm of Julia Bergman really impressed me. I really think she came a long way. And I'm excited to see what Julia can do come Georgia Tech season. And then Italy deserves loads of credit. Like, honestly, they really proved why they were one of the top 4 teams. Matter of fact, they were actually they actually finished 3rd, but it was a very narrow 3rd behind Brazil. Italy lost 1 more set than Brazil did. So the fact that Italy came oh so close to overtaking Brazil for number 2 speaks to high volumes of how Italy has improved. So that was that for the VNL, and honestly, it's quite a great event that I love covering. So next up, when it comes to international volleyball play, we have the FIVB Volleyball Women's World Championship starting in September and going all the way to October 1st. So it's going to be a fun time. I'm going to preview that probably maybe 1 more week before play happens, just because we can't look too far ahead. And yeah, we're going to take ourselves a little break from women's VNL action. Jumping on over to the men's VNL action, this week is basically the top 8. So basically your final standings, as I mentioned last week, happens to be Italy at 10-2 with 31 points, Poland in second place at 10-2 with 31 points, but their set won and loss ratio is worse than Italy's. USA at 10-2 with 27 points. France and Japan both tied for 4th with 9-3 records. However, France had 28 points and Japan had 27 points. Brazil finished 8-4 with 24 points. Iran finished 7-5 with 20 points, and then Netherlands finished 6-6 with 17 points. Basically, it's like World Cup volleyball style, if that makes sense. So in the quarterfinals, we have USA versus Brazil, and then we also have Italy versus Netherlands. So looking at it, Italy versus Netherlands kind of looks like a mismatch, but you never can underestimate any of these teams. Like, I am not even going to say it. Any team can beat any team when it comes to the VNL men's side of things. If it can happen on the women's side of things, it can happen on the men's side of things. I don't care. And based on how the U.S. defeated France in the final week of the VNL round-robin play, all bets are off. All bets are off. So, Italy versus Netherlands is going to be a great matchup. And USA versus Brazil always is a great matchup. US got the better of Brazil the first go-around, but it's tough to beat a team twice in one season. It's tough to even beat a team 3 times in one season. But when it comes to, like, FIVB play or VNL play, it's really tough to beat a team in the regular season and then beat them in the postseason. Because you never know if that team was missing players in the regular season and then they are at full strength in the postseason. And vice versa. So the U.S. is going to have a gigantic target on their back. So for the U.S., in order to win, they're just going to have to serve and pass well. And then in the other quarterfinal, we have France versus Japan. The 4-5 matchup is always intriguing. France was leading the charge when it came to the VNL men's standings. Then they kind of fell down the hill in the last week of the season. So I feel France is going to come out guns a-blazing. They can't underestimate Japan just because Japan did a great job of getting this far, and they don't want to go down that soon. And then the other quarterfinal, we have Poland versus Iran. So I don't know too much about Poland, other than the fact that they nearly went neck and neck with Italy, especially in that final week of the round-robin play. But for Poland, I really think they have what it takes to beat Iran, but they can't underestimate Iran. I feel that every team is going to bring their A game, whether it's the top team in the knockout round or the bottom team in the knockout round. I really think that every team is going to bring their A game, and no team is safe. No team is safe from any team when it comes to the knockout round. And it's basically everyone's 0-0. Like, no one cares what you did in round-robin play. Everyone's 0-0, and the goal is to be 1-0 going into the semifinals and then eventually going to the final. And then once you're 1-0 or 3-0, once you win the championship, then you could celebrate. But for me, I really think that it's up for grabs. I think any of those 8 teams can win it all. I'm actually not going to single out anybody like I did on the women's side. I think it's just going to be a great knockout round matchup. I really am very intrigued with the France-Japan and USA-Brazil matchup. But definitely keep an eye on Poland, Iran, and Netherlands, Italy. Something to note is Argentina actually had more points than Netherlands, but Netherlands had the better record. So there's that. So, and unlike the women's side of things, the men's side is there was basically no shifts in terms of teams and whatnot. So the men's side of things is basically 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, and 4 versus 5. Kind of like in any other tournament. So the quarterfinals begin on Wednesday, July 20th, which is in 2 more days. And then the other set of quarterfinal matchups start on Thursday, July 21st. The semifinals is set for Saturday, I imagine. And then the final and the third place match is set for Sunday, which is going to be fun times, and I can't wait for the VNL men's side of things. Like I actually told this to Carlo Edra before we started. I tried to talk about all things volleyball, not just NCAA, but the VNL, the NVA, the AVP. I am the whole shebang. But on that note, that is going to do it for the VNL discussion. Like I said, the games begin in 2 more days, and it's going to be a fun time. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Without any further delay, let us drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I appreciate you all tuning in. Sorry if I was 100%, I had some allergies, but I feel good for the most part, even though my voice is shot. Shout out to the chat room. Shout out to Gina Gina G, Jackson Davis, Crooks, Adam Karnick, and Mike Patton. I appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, even at work, I appreciate you. Thank you to my guest, Carlo Edra, for being a guest on Set Point. It is much appreciated. Good luck to you the rest of the way.